Joe Biden didn't shift. He didn't look up. Not until Ibrahim Traore spoke one sentence. A soldier president from Burkina Faso. One line, live on global television. It cracked silent. It pierced power. It made the world stop. It made the White House rewind. It made history. This is that moment. This is his journey. This is Biden's reckoning. Joe Biden sat stiffly. Behind him, the flags of many nations rustled. The room was full of expectant faces. Cameras whirred. Lights glowed. The ambience was polite, diplomatic, unremarkable. No one expected violence. No one expected drama. No one expected Traore. He stepped forward. His uniform is crisp. His posture is firm. He carried no weapon. He carried conviction. His voice was calm, but heavy. He breathed in. He moved slowly. Each step measured. This was not ceremonial. It was intentional. His name echoed. Ibrahim Traore, the youngest president in Africa, a former captain. He had taken power in a coup, but his mission was different. It was moral. It was for change. It was for justice. He paused. For the cameras. For the audience. He surveyed the faces. They were polite. They were distant. He felt their doubt. He felt their silence. He felt their expectation. He felt their dismissal. He remembered his father. Remembered the fields. Remembering the injustice. Remembering the stolen gold. He remembered the broken promises. The pipelines of power that fed foreign fleets while his people starved. He carried their pain. He carried their hope. He carried their voice. He carried their anger, but also their dreams. He carried their prayers. He carried their demand, not for pity, but for respect. He inhaled again. His voice opened, soft but clear. Measured words rolled out. "My name is Ibrahim Traore," he said. The crowd sat still. The lights blinked. Microphones trembled. "I come from Burkina Faso," he said. "A land blessed, a land exploited." He paused. "Our gold fed miles. Our children fed minds. Our health fed your headlines." His voice gained weight. The words landed like stones. This was not diplomacy. It was truth, not politicking, but reckoning. The words cut. The audience listened closer. Biden shifted. His pen tapped. He frowned. He leaned in. Someone whispered into his ear. He looked at Traore again. His posture tightened. Traore spoke of hospitals without medicine, schools without books, farms overtaken, water poisoned. Communities have fallen. For decades, he introduced data. Real numbers, 20%, 30%, millions lost. He contrasted his statistics with world profits. He made it clear there was a relationship, but it wasn't trade. It was an extraction. He guided the audience. No accusations without evidence. No emotion without structure. He wielded stories, then proof, then challenge. He paused. He watched cameras click. He watched eyes narrow. He watched pills of attention sharpen. He closed his fist. Then I opened it. It was a gesture, a question, a statement. "If we remain invisible," he said, "if our silence serves your income, then our silence must end." The room was altered. It shifted. A collective breath pulled sharp. A diplomat coughed. Someone adjusted a tie. Someone recorded on phone. A reporter typed fast. A voice said, "Interesting." Biden blinked. His pen stopped. He stared. He replayed the words in his head. Traore continued. He spoke of policy, of reform, of sovereignty, of dignity. He spoke of African unity, of local solutions. He spoke of new alliances, not dictated, but equal. He spoke of education, of health, of industry. He spoke of young voices, rising voices, marginalized voices. He paused. He looked to the horizon beyond ceilings, beyond continents. "We are not here to beg," he said. "We are here to demand." The word demand struck the room again. He closed with another pause. Soft, long, it hung in the air. He then stepped away. No applause, no cheering, just silence that pressed. He walked off. The room remained still. The lights stayed bright. The cameras captured every inch. Biden sat back. He touched his pen, then set it down. His set expression remained, but his eyes had changed. An aide nudged him. He didn't respond. He didn't move. For a moment, he simply sat. The impact reached across lines of protocol. Traore returned backstage. He removed his coat. He exhaled slow. He closed his eyes. He had said his line. The one line promised. The world waited. This was part one. A scene set. Tension seated. Conflict born. Ibrahim Traore had stepped forward. He had spoken for many. Now the question hovered in the air. Would the world listen? The silence hadn't lifted. Not in the room. Not in the minds of those who heard him. Not even in the corridors outside. A French diplomat muttered, "That was intense." Another whispered, "Dangerous man. Too bold." Someone else asked, "Did he just threaten us?" But no one had a clear answer, because Traore hadn't shouted. He hadn't insulted. He hadn't pleaded. He had just told the truth. Biden stood, slowly, still absorbing. He left the conference room without saying a word. Reporters called his name. He didn't respond. His aide followed quickly. Inside the secure lounge, the president sat, hands folded. A screen played footage of Traore's speech on loop. Replay. Pause. Replay again. Run his file, Biden said. His voice was quiet, but sharp. The aide nodded, already typing. Traore, meanwhile, was flying back to Ouagadougou. He sat by the window, gazing out. He wasn't satisfied. Not yet. That speech was just an opening shot. A match struck, but the fire hadn't yet taken. He leaned back, eyes closed, memories played behind his lids. The first time he saw foreign soldiers march through his village, boots louder than prayers, helicopters louder than birds. His father was arrested for organizing farmers. His uncle was poisoned in a gold dispute. His childhood was not painted in play, but in loss. He remembered asking his mother once, "Why do they hate us?" She didn't answer. Now, decades later, he wasn't asking anymore. He was answering. Back in Washington, Biden received a full intelligence brief. The report was detailed. Military background, ideological leanings, support among youth, hostility toward France, increasing popularity in West Africa, even admiration in some corners of Latin America. One line read, "Potential to become a Pan-African icon if not contained." Biden read that line twice. He stared out the window. The city bustled beneath, but his mind stayed on that sentence. "If our silence serve your income, then our silence must end." It kept echoing. He remembered Mandela's prison voice, MLK's sermons, not the same words, but the same gravity. He picked up the phone. "Get me the State Department. I want full media tracking on that speech. I want responses. I want trends. Everything." His voice cracked just slightly, like something inside him had shifted, and he didn't know what to do with it. Meanwhile, in Ghana, a group of university students had already transcribed Traore's quote onto a banner. They held it over a highway bridge. Cars honked in support. Someone filmed it. The video went viral. 24 million views by morning. In Nairobi, a podcast played his full speech. The host choked up halfway through. Finally, she said, "Someone said it." In Johannesburg, a former ANC leader called a press conference. "We stand with Traore." The reaction wasn't slow. It was explosive. And it didn't stop in Africa. In Brazil, a black activist group replayed the speech at their protest. In Chicago, a classroom discussed it line by line. In Paris, a journalist published an op-ed. The Traore moment is bigger than Burkina Faso. In France's defense ministry, internal warnings buzzed. One report said, "Narrative control lost, Afrocentric ideology rising, strategic influence weakening." The ripple had become a wave. And Biden? He sat in a strategy room. Screens flashed live footage of newsrooms debating, analysts arguing, hosts questioning their own governments. Someone said, "This may not go away." Biden nodded. Another voice. Should we ignore him or engage? Pause. Neither, Biden said. First we listen. Silence. That was not something often said in these rooms. In Burkina Faso, Ibrahim met with his team. He showed them the data, the reach, the movement. He didn't smile. He only said, "It's working." But then he added, "They won't stay quiet." The next morning, he received a message. "Anonymous, you are speaking too loud. People are watching. People are preparing." A threat, not obvious, but real. He showed it to no one. He folded it, burned it, and flushed the ashes. His face remained calm, but his mind tightened, because now the game was shifting. The world had heard his truth, but power does not clap when it hears truth. Power plots. He knew it. He was ready. In the U.S., a senator went on television. Who is this man, really? Why are we giving him attention? On social media, the debate split. Some praised, some condemned, some said hero, some said opportunist. But all agreed the line hit. It stayed in the bloodstream of public thought. If your peace means our poverty, then Africa must choose noise over silence. The phrasing, the rhythm, the power. People didn't just repeat it. They felt it. That night, Biden replayed the moment again. In private. No advisors. No notes. Just him. And the voice of a soldier president who had just changed the narrative. He poured a drink, sat back, listened. One sentence. One broadcast. One man. He whispered to himself, "What now?" But he already knew. The balance had shifted, and the world would not return to how it was. Not now. Not after this. The air felt heavier than usual in Washington. The speech had gone viral. Every network, every pundit, every online feed was talking about it. But not just the content. They were talking about the calm, the sharpness, the stare that Ibrahim held when he said it, and how Joe Biden, seasoned, experienced, powerful, had been caught off guard on live television. The White House communications team scrambled. Reports flooded in. The quote had now been translated into 14 languages. Millions were repeating it, but not just repeating. They were echoing the anger, the wound, the demand behind it. In a closed-door meeting, Biden listened to his advisors argue. "Ignore him," one said. "He'll fade. These military guys always do." Another said, "He's no ordinary officer. He's shaping ideology. He's weaponizing words." Biden didn't speak. He just watched the clip again on the monitor, over and over. His aide finally asked, "What are you looking for?" Biden replied, "I'm looking for the moment the room changed, when silence became power." At that same hour, in Ouagadougou, Traoré stood before a quiet group of students. No camera, no speechwriters, just a chalkboard in a classroom. He'd returned to the university he once dreamed of. He pointed to a circle he drew on the board. "This is how they see Africa," he said. "A resource field, an opportunity, an object." He crossed it out. "And this is how we must see ourselves," he continued, drawing again. "A force, a voice, a future." One student asked, "Do you think they'll let you continue?" Traoré looked at him calm. "No," he said. "They won't let me. That's why I won't ask." He left the classroom and walked outside. The courtyard was filled with supporters, quietly waiting. No chanting, just presence, as if guarding something sacred. A young girl stepped forward. She couldn't have been more than 10. She held a paper with the quote written in her own handwriting. He knelt to her level. "Who taught you that?" he asked. She smiled. "Everyone." The weight of that answer stayed with him. In Paris, the French foreign minister made a statement on air. Burkina Faso must restore democratic order. Military leadership has no place in diplomacy. In response, an African diplomat from Senegal said, "When democracy ignores a people, leadership must remember them." Tensions rose. News anchors asked, "Is Traoré a danger to the West?" But no one was asking what he meant, only what he threatened. Inside the Pentagon, security experts met. One general said, This isn't military aggression. It's intellectual insurgency. Another added, he's not playing politics. He's creating a movement. One advisor suggested they pressure allies to isolate him diplomatically. Another said, if we do that, we confirm everything he's saying. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré was approached by a European journalist. Would you like to clarify your statement? She asked. Something that was too harsh. He smiled faintly. Harsh as a child dying next to a gold mine. She lowered her eyes. No follow-up question. Later that night, Traoré stood on the balcony of the presidential palace. Alone, the city lights flickered in the distance. He could hear faint music, not of celebration, but of resilience. A traditional flute, a drum in the wind. His aide came behind him. There's a call from Washington. The aide said. Traoré didn't respond. Not the president. The aide clarified, but someone senior. Traoré stayed silent. They want talk. The aide added, I already spoke, he said. Inside the U.S., Biden met with an African-American civil rights group. It wasn't planned, but he requested it himself. He showed them the clip. What do you hear? He asked. One man said, I hear clarity. A woman replied, I hear us. Biden leaned back, closed his eyes for a second. He hadn't expected those answers. He expected criticism, but what he got was reflection. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré sat with a group of elders. No titles, no protocol, just elders. One of them, his former teacher, asked softly, Did you mean to say it that way? Yes, Traoré said. The teacher nodded. Then carry the storm, but don't become it. Traoré understood. Rage can light the fire, but only vision can keep it alive. In Rwanda, Uganda, Ghana, Tanzania, leaders began facing internal pressure. Youth groups citing Traoré. Protests forming, but not against governments, against systems, against dependence, against silence. The line had become a code. At a private UN meeting, one representative said, We may be witnessing the birth of a new African doctrine. Someone else whispered, or the birth of its greatest threat. That night, a powerful diplomat from Europe sent an encrypted message. Neutralize the voice before it becomes a war drum. Traoré received no direct threats, but the signs came in different forms. One oil deal collapsed. A mining firm pulled out. Foreign aid slowed. International bank transfers delayed. All unofficial. All quiet. It was not a bullet, but it was pressure. His inner circle gathered. They'll strangle the economy, one warned. They'll paint you extremist, another added. They'll wait for you to fall. Traoré listened. He didn't blink. Then we build new breath, he said, with our lungs, not theirs. Meanwhile, Biden sat alone again, reviewing one final briefing. His national security advisor asked, Sir, what do you want to do? Biden looked up. I want to understand what shook me, he said. He reached for the phone. No contact, he ordered. Just listen. Morning light broke over Washington. The sun rose like any other day, but the atmosphere had changed. In the West Wing, advisors moved quickly, quietly. Conversations were sharper. Reports stacked higher. News networks didn't let go. Traoré's speech was still the headline, still the question, still the echo inside political rooms that had never spoken his name before. Joe Biden arrived early, earlier than anyone expected. He walked into the briefing room with a folder in hand. His team rose. He gestured for them to sit. I'm not here for analysis, he said. I'm here for consequence. No one spoke. He placed a folder down. Inside were letters. Letters from African-American leaders, civil society groups, even international activists, all asking the same thing. Will the United States respond with power or with humility? Biden sat. He's forcing the world to look in the mirror, he said. And I can't say I enjoy the reflection. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, the pressure reached Ibrahim's doorstep. Foreign banks had frozen 3 key accounts. Agricultural aid had stalled. Border trade slowed. Opposition parties, long silent, suddenly reappeared on international news, criticizing his tone, questioning his intentions. His office received a message from a Western diplomat, polite on the surface, but the words held weight. Let's find balance before the world tips too far. He read it twice, then passed it to his aide. Balance has always meant silence, he said. Not anymore. He gathered his cabinet. No yelling, no panic, just facts. He laid out the economic sabotage. He explained the diplomatic signals. Then quietly he asked, "Who among you still believes in this path?" Silence. Then one by one, hands rose, not out of fear, but faith. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were believers. At the African Union, whispers began turning into conversations. Delegates from Ghana, Mali, and Niger privately voiced support. Unofficial for now, but growing. A small bloc began forming, cautious but curious. What if, one delegate asked, he's right, in Paris, the pressure cooked faster. French corporations called emergency sessions. Mining contracts were suddenly under review. Energy partnerships were being re-examined. Investors worried. Stock dipped. A voice on air said, "Traoré isn't a threat to democracy. He's a threat to comfort." That line struck deep. In London, a journalist interviewed a Burkinabe refugee who said, "We don't want pity. We want peace. And sometimes peace must speak like thunder." At that moment, her voice cracked. Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré walked through a hospital. No cameras, just the smell of bleach and struggle. A nurse approached him. "They cut the funding again," she whispered. "We lost 10 more." He paused. His jaw clenched. He nodded. Outside, a journalist asked him, "Do you still believe words can change the world?" He looked at the camera. They already did. In Washington, a final strategy was being debated. 2 paths: isolate him, starve his narrative, undermine through media, or engage him, respect the voice, acknowledge the call. One aide asked, "What's our gain if we elevate him?" Another answered, "What's our loss if we don't?" Biden stood. His voice cut through. Sometimes power isn't about what we say. It's about who we choose to hear. Silence. Then he added, "Prepare a message." The world buzzed. Word leaked. The U.S. might formally respond. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré received his own message, a secret one, not from a diplomat, from a young girl, the same one who handed him the note days earlier. This time, she sent a drawing. It showed him standing beside other African leaders, holding hands. Behind them, the flags of all African nations rose. And in her handwriting, "Don't stop." He stared at it for a long time. He folded it, slipped it into his jacket. That night, he appeared on national television. He looked into the camera. Calm, certain. "I have been called many things in the past few days. Dangerous, defiant, undiplomatic. But I am only one thing African." He paused. "And I am no longer asking for a seat at the table. I am building our own." His message aired worldwide. In living rooms in Lagos, it brought tears. In boardrooms in Berlin, it caused alarm. In dorms in Cape Town, it sparked cheering. In villages in Guinea, it inspired pride. And in the Oval Office, it brought stillness. Biden watched alone. This was no longer a passing wave. This was history turning. He remembered a quote from his youth. "Sometimes the bravest thing is not to speak. It's to listen." The next day, his message went out. Not a press release, not a counterattack. A statement. Calm, measured. It read, "The President of the United States recognizes the voice of President Ibrahim Traoré as one that represents the urgency, courage, and conviction of a new generation. We may not agree on every word, but we must never ignore its truth." That single message shifted the climate. Social media exploded. Hashtag Biden Responds trended, but so did hashtag Traoré. 2 names, 2 worlds, now talking, now walking a fine line between conflict and connection. The suspense didn't ease. It tightened. In Burkina Faso, the people gathered in the streets, not to riot, not to burn, but to stand, holding candles, holding flags, holding hope. A soft chant began. Truth is a weapon. Speak again. And Ibrahim? He stood at his balcony once more. This time, not alone. Beside him were elders, teachers, farmers, nurses, students, and in the middle of them all, that little girl, holding her drawing. He looked down at the crowd, then closed his eyes. The war hadn't come, not in the way people expected, but a battle had begun, a battle of silence, a battle of courage, a battle of truth, and the final act was near. The summit room was colder than usual. New York, United Nations headquarters. Flags stood tall. Faces sat straight. It was a global equity forum, a meeting that usually passed unnoticed, but not this time, because Ibrahim Traore was on the speaker list. And now, the room wasn't watching casually. It was watching closely, some with curiosity, some with fear, some with quiet admiration. He arrived without an entourage, just two aides, no media fanfare, just presence. His name whispered through the halls. That's him, the one who made Biden respond, the one who cracked the silence. As he walked through, some nodded, others turned away, but all felt something shift as he entered. Meanwhile, in a private chamber, President Biden prepared his own address. He watched Traore's arrival on a monitor. His advisor asked, "Would you like to speak before or after him?" Biden looked up. "After," he said. "I want to hear it." The lights dimmed. Cameras rolled. One by one, leaders spoke. Some talked of the economy, others of climate. Most avoided anything controversial. Then Traore took the stage. He wore no suit, just his uniform, not military arrogance, but simplicity. He stood still, not rushed, not rehearsed. Then he began. "There are two kinds of silence," he said. "The silence of peace and the silence of permission." The room leaned in. For too long, our silence permitted theft. Our silence permitted suffering. Our silence permitted the rewriting of who we are. A pause. Today, I return to that silence. He placed a small object on the podium. It was a stone, a red stone from a Burkinabe mine. Our soil is not a gift to be pocketed. It is not charity. It is not collateral. It is a memory. It is blood. It is birth. Murmurs spread. "Don't look at us as victims," he said. "We're done with that. Look at us as vision. Because we are not the back of the line. We are the start of a new one." Someone coughed. A few clapped, but most just watched. "Don't fear our rise," he continued. "Fear what happens if we do not rise." He looked at no one in particular, but everyone felt seen. Then came the final moment. "Mr. President," he said, now turning to Biden directly, "the world listened when you finally did. And for that, I thank you." The room froze. But listening is not enough. He stepped away. No applause, just stillness. Biden slowly rose from his seat. He walked to the podium. The contrast was sharp. Old power, new power, history meeting possibility. He began softly. "When I first heard this young man speak, I didn't feel proud. I felt uncomfortable." Eyes widened. "But discomfort," he continued, "is how truth begins." He placed a hand on the red stone Traore left behind. "I've been in politics a long time. I've sat in war rooms, watched economies rise and fall, signed peace agreements, and I've also missed things." A long breath. "I missed the signs when voices were rising from places we thought were silent. I missed a moment when pain became louder than policy." He paused. "Today I won't miss this." Some murmured. Some gasped. "We must change, not just in what we give, but in how we listen, in what we undo." He turned to Traore. "You spoke with clarity. You spoke with fire. And I finally heard it." He looked back at the crowd. "If we are serious about justice, then we must be serious about sharing power." No script, no teleprompter, just Biden, raw. The speech ended. A few clapped, then more, then all, not thunder, but respect. Traore watched from his seat. His face was unreadable, but his hand pressed against his chest. Lightly, once. Outside, Crowds gathered around screens. Phones buzzed. Radios played the words on loop. The moment wasn't perfect, but it was real. In Burkina Faso, children pointed at the screen and shouted, "That's him." In South Africa, elders cried. In Chicago, students debated every sentence. In Brazil, protest signs now carried both names. And across the world, something strange happened. For the first time in years, people didn't just talk about what was said. They remembered how it felt. Later that night, Traore walked alone. No camera, just him. He stopped by the East River, wind brushing his face. A woman passed him, recognized him. She didn't speak. She just nodded, and he nodded back. In that quiet, he whispered something only the river heard. "I didn't come for a seat. I came for a shift." This wasn't a speech. This was a fault line. A soldier turned leader stood up. A president turned listener sat down. And in between them, the world bent just slightly. This wasn't a clash of countries. It was a test of character. Ibrahim Traore didn't arrive with armies. He arrived with a sentence. And that sentence cracked decades of silence. Because sometimes one voice, one line, can shift the spine of the planet. And when it does, the question isn't whether history will remember it. The question is, will we respond to it?